So, Minaz, let me tell you about an experience from 2015 when I went on my first trekking expedition. We had gone to Fairy Meadows, and here's how it went down. When we started, there's a section that you cover by jeep before you begin the main trek. For those of us who live in flat areas, it usually takes around 4 to 5 hours to cover the distance. Interestingly, right at the start of the trek, there's a small makeshift shop run by a local guy selling some supplies. First time we went, there were 8 of us friends, and we picked up some energy boosters like chocolates from there. We began our trek around 6 PM, and the shopkeeper warned us that it wasn't a suitable time to start. He suggested we should go in the morning, as most trekkers do, since trekking at night can be dangerous. But being young and full of energy, we insisted we could handle it. At that time, it was our first trek, and we didn't have professional lights for night trekking. We were using those old lighters with a small backlight. It was drizzling lightly as we started, and with 8 of us, our trekking speeds varied. I was moving a bit faster than my friends, and at one point, my phone slipped out of my pocket in a rocky area. I only had the backlight from my lighter to guide me, and it was getting darker. I decided to pick up the pace to cover some distance before it got too dark. I would rest at certain points, and my friends would catch up before we continued together. Eventually, I reached a midpoint where my lighter's backlight suddenly went out, and it was pitch black. You know how dark it gets in the woods compared to the city? I stood there for about 5 minutes, completely in the dark, hoping to see some faint lights from my friends. Honestly, I was reciting whatever I could remember to keep calm. Below me was a glacier, and on the opposite side was a mountain that we had to climb to reach Fairy Meadows. I was having a moment with myself, and even though 5 minutes might not seem long, the experience was profound. By around 7:30 PM, it was completely dark, and I finally spotted a faint light in the distance. I realized my friends were coming, and I felt relieved. I was calling out to them, but they couldn't see me, they could only hear my voice. When they reached me, they made sure I was okay, and we took a moment to catch our breath. While we were standing there, we noticed 2 flashlights moving on the opposite mountain, as if someone else was trekking there too. We were surprised because it was unusual to see anyone else at that hour. I thought maybe they were security personnel or something. When we told them we were trekking, they aggressively asked who goes up there at this time. I glanced at my friend, and we were both taken aback by the attitude. I suggested we just keep moving forward instead of engaging with them. We started trekking again, but I heard the same voice behind me asking why I hadn't answered them. I told my friends not to look back and just keep walking. We had only a few flashlights left, and as we moved forward, we were getting closer to the tricky parts of the trek. The guy who had been talking to me had a large, semi-professional flashlight, while the other one was just smiling, which felt odd given the situation. They insisted we give them our gear to carry up, and we joked about it, but it felt strange. As we continued, we managed to leave them behind. We were moving faster and reached a point where we had to make a couple of tricky turns before heading straight up to Fairy Meadows. By around 11 or 11:30 PM, we finally made it to Fairy Meadows. It was late, and we were looking for a place to stay. After some searching, we found a cottage and settled in. We were all a bit shaken by the earlier encounter and shared our experiences. The local guy we spoke to asked us what we thought about being up there at such a height. He seemed to enjoy our nervousness. The next day, we planned to trek to Nanga Park at Base Camp 1. We woke up, and I suggested we tackle the trek in the morning. I had previously mentioned a point where the glacier melts, and we had a strange experience there. That day, we all heard our names being called individually, not all at once, which was eerie. One of my friends was frustrated and joked about how it felt like a horror movie. I told him it was just an experience to enjoy, and the more nervous we got, the more we would ruin our trip. After reaching Base Camp 1 and 2, we decided to stop at that same point on our way back to see if we would hear anything again. Believe it or not, we heard our names called out again at the same spot. This was my 3rd time experiencing this, and it was just as surreal as before. When we returned to Chillers, we stayed at the same hotel, and again, we heard our names being called in the garden area. It was like a voice echoing off the mountains, not shouting, but clear enough to hear from a distance. It wasn't just my name, it was everyone's name, all at once, in different voices. This became a regular occurrence whenever we gathered as a group. It was like a supernatural phenomenon that followed us. When I returned to Lahore, I discussed this with my family, and they suggested that we should all go to a park and perform a ritual to break whatever was happening. I was the one who took the initiative to investigate this, and honestly, I was more scared after hearing their advice. They warned that this could escalate if we didn't address it. So we did the ritual, and life went back to normal. In 2018, I went on another trip with a different group of friends. They were curious about our past experiences, and I was mentally prepared to avoid any strange occurrences. The next trip went smoothly until we reached the same point at base camp, and once again we heard our names being called out in the same pattern. Music,